Hello everybody and welcome to the 7th episode of the Nisekoi chapter reviews. Hi Jaden, are you happy in life?
Sure, we'll go with that.
You are?
Yeah.
Because reading these two volumes made me a bit sadder.
Okay.
Right? Or made me a bit sad. Sadder isn't a word.
Yeah.
First off, before we get started, let me say this though. This time we are covering chapters 117 through 134. Two volumes.
All right.
Sound good?
Same as usual, yeah.
Alrighty. Again, we're talking about volumes 14 and 15. I don't really have a lot to say here at the beginning. Written by Nanashi Komi, of course. So let's just get started. Last time we had the Ruri arc, and we had a little joke chapter about lunches.
Okay.
Right? And this time, we start off with a good chapter, in my opinion.
Yep.
Right? Raku gets appendicitis.
Okay.
Right, and all of the girls come to him eventually, because Chitoge lets them know they can all come, and they all just come to see him and how he's doing, right? And there's a whole joke because they all just give him too many apples, at the end...
They all coincidentally give him apples.
And they peel them for him and all of that, right?
Does that have some kind of... Do you know if that has any, Japanese significance?
I do not know.
Because I feel like that would be if they all brought the same thing, but...
Yeah, but I really don't know, to be honest with you.
But yeah, it was a good chapter. It was wholesome.
Yeah, and we also have this scene with, how Chitoge, since she wants to see Rocky, right? She goes to a window to see him, and just a little joke thing, right? Chapter 118. So... I was positive about the first chapter here, right? But this is where this volume gets crap.
This is where it jumps the shark.
Yep.
Alright.
We get the introduction to Yui Kanakura.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Pretty much Yui is an old friend of Raku's, right? They sort of grew up together and they sort of have like a brother-sister relationship, right?
Childhood friend. Right.
Exactly. And she is the mafia boss of the Charsukai, the Chinese mafia, right? She is a person of that, right? She calls Raku Rocky, right? And Raku didn't know she was coming, and she comes. Big thing, right? And then we learned that she will be going to Raku's school. How? She is their teacher. And even better, so pretty much what I didn't mention before this is that Chitoge comes over to Raku's place after school, right? And they meet Yui there, right?
Yep.
So Chitoge now knows Yui, sort of, right? And knows their relationship, right? And we get a shot of all of the girls just, either knowing her or not knowing her, right? Like Tsugumi, Ruri, and Onodera don't really know who this is, right? While Shu's just like, wait, what? Wait. And Marika's just got this other face of disgust, and the few of them realize who this person is, right? Chapter 119, she's her teacher, right? There's a whole thing where she recognizes some students, right? They get back to their house, and as they're going to bed, she's actually staying in the Shuheigumi headquarters of Raku, right? Okay. She comes and sleeps in Raku's futon.
Yeah.
And you know what she's got? She's got a key on her.
Oh,
what type of key? A key to a pendant. Whose pendant? Who knows?
Yeah,
Jane, I've got a few more chapters here, and we'll just go through it all at once. We'll go through our raw feelings as soon as we end this intro arc.
All right.
Okay? Pretty much Raku sees that she has a key, and Raku asks her, hey, what is this? And Yui asks Raku to wait, right? As it'll all come out in due time. Right? Then there's a meeting between all of the important girls here, right? Okay. We've, of course, got Raku. Raku's not a girl. We've got Raku, Chitoge, Onodera, Tachibana, and Yui. And, of course, also there is Tsugumi. Right? We've got these 5 girls here, and pretty much what ends up happening is Yui sort of explains the situation as she knows it, right? Sort of looking to where she knows a bit more and she lets on, right? And she also sort of says some stuff to Marika with her, Marika hesitating, saying that she knows anything else too, right? That remembers the past in a way, right? Ends up being that Marika remembers almost everything about this, right? And she does not like Yui at all, right? We cut back to the Shuheigumi household. Raku and Yui are there later. And Raku asked Yui our question, and Yui asked him a question back about, these keys independent. What are you going to do whenever you find out who it is, right? Are you going to give your heart to that person, or how's it going to work? And Raku's like, I'm just going to give it to whoever I've going to give it to now, right?
Yeah.
We all just want to know, right? That's where the chapter ends, right? 121, we start off again with them all meeting up again, and Yui telling everybody that the pendant won't open as it stands.
Yeah.
Right? That's really just all that's mentioned, right? We get a little joke about how Raku and Yui are being treated at school, right?
Yeah.
Yui treats Raku like a brother in a way, right? And all of the boys are jealous of him, right? And she's a joke where her teacher mode goes off by her taking off her glasses, which she doesn't even need. Right? We learn who Yui's bodyguard is. It is a little person by the name of Knight, right?
Okay.
And we end up learning why Yui came to the area, right? And that is because Raku is the only family that she has left in a way, right? All of her parents are dead, and it's just very a moment of Raku, like, you're right. I mean, I'm sort of the only family she has left in a way, right? Even, like, Raku thinks of her as a sister all the way, right? And the next thing, they're back again at night. Yui comes over to Raku's room, sleeps on his futon, and we get a shot of Raku just giving in, just falling asleep, and Yui's over there, and she ends up waking up and says, you know what? I've always loved you, and not as a brother. Dun 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 dun! And that is the end of this Yui introduction arc. The next chapter includes Yui, but I've got a great way to explain that one. So what do you think of this, Jaden? Because if you can't tell, this is my biggest problem with Nisekoi is Yui.
Okay.
How Yui is treated, what her role is, and just everything with it.
I don't think she's necessarily a bad character, but the relationship is weird.
Yes, I will totally agree.
It's bordering on incest, kind of, because of their prior relationship.
Yes, and it's just... Now, let me say...
And the teacher-student dynamic...
Yeah, I will always give this to Nisekoi how it's got, like, a good plot progression, right? A few volumes ago, we had Miss Kyoko, right? Their old teacher leave, right? Time to get a new teacher, right? You could just add a new teacher and had, like, a whole few chapters introducing this teacher and having something where all of the girls come together and, like, help them out, and Raku just helps them out, right? You didn't need to make this how it is, right? It's not bad. And in the storytelling way, it isn't bad. It is just that I'm not a fan of it, right?
Yeah.
Personally, it's just like, all right, you're knocking off the sister and the teacher trope in one character, right?
Yeah.
And it is just like...
Now, you want to know another anime that does that?
What?
Domestic Girlfriend. Ever heard of it?
No, I don't care.
Okay, so basically, MC, his dad finds a new stepmom, and it turns out that his new sisters is his teacher and a girl that he hooked up with, like, last week. And they're in a love triangle, and it's the weirdest... It's one of the worst... It's probably the worst anime I've watched. It's trash. It's garbage.
Because that's what you watch. You watch trash like that.
But that teacher also kind of sister relationship, I'm drawing connections, and it's very feel bad, you know?
Yeah, it's just not a good thing in my opinion.
So moral of the story, don't watch it.
There's another series like this that one I eventually want to cover here. It's called We Never Learn.
Oh god, not that
It's
one.
another Shonen Jump harem, right? I've read it. I don't have a problem with it. It's really good. It may be better than this. Maybe.
Okay.
But in there is another teacher character, and it's just, she's the worst part of that series too. It's just like, whenever you introduce a character like this, you can't help but have them be bad in a way.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, I think it all flows well, and like, the reason she came is because Raku's the only family she's left and all of that, right? But you just don't need to make it how it is. Right? It's just, I'm not a fan of it.
Alright.
Now we're just going to go to 122, right? So there's another series out there, Martial Magic and Muscles, right? The way it names its chapters is it's got a character name and the chapter title, right? I will explain this chapter like this. Ninjiro Fukada and the Futures of the Young. Chapter 123.
Is that the one with that teacher guy?
Yeah, the teacher guy.
This chapter kind of sucked.
No, I thought it was really good. It's pretty much this guy being like, there's a bunch of different types of people in the world, and I'm this type person. There's a bunch of people who are outgoing, they know what they want to do in life, and there's a bunch of things like that, right? He's like, Yui's a great teacher, she gets the students to do what they want, and there's all of the students in this class, all the ones that we know as main characters, right? And it's just like, what are they going to do in life? It's a lot of jokes built up around it, right?
Yep.
And by the end, they all sort of realize, well, I don't know. Most of them don't know what they are going to do, right?
Yeah.
Besides for a few of them who sort of have it set out.
Yep.
Anki was a good chapter.
There's another chapter in Love is War. It's very similar to this. It's just a random teacher who shows up for one chapter and is never again significant.
Yeah. But this guy isn't significant whatsoever.
Oh, no, he's not.
Chapter 123, after hearing that, Onodera is sort of like, what is my future going to be, right? And she goes around to all of the girls and sort of like asks them. There's a moment where Tsugumi's got like a chart and she shows like what she's good at. It's a good joke or whatever. Eventually, she's up at the hiding spot, and Raku comes up there, right? And they're like, oh, hey, what are you doing here, right? And Onodera in the end sort of just learns, like, no matter what happens, it's just, if I'm able just to live my life, I can be happy, right? And sort of Raku helps her realize that.
Good chapter. I'm also
chapter.
an Onodera simp, so.
Yep. 124, Tsugumi gets to go on a mission, and she has Paula, who is backing her up, right? Paula doesn't back her up. She ate too many candies earlier and gets sick. We find Raku going on a fishing trip. This may be my favorite panel in Nisekoi. This panel where Raku is just walking by, just with all of his fishing gear, and just looks over like, oh, hey, how you doing?
Yep.
It may just be my favorite panel in the series. I just want to point that out. Pretty much, they need to get this disc off a mob boss, and only couples can come on, right? Claude still thinks Tsugumi's girl, so Tsugumi and Paula work out fine, right?
Yep.
But no, it ends up being that Tsugumi and Raku have to infiltrate this ship, and there's a whole big joke at the end of the chapter that this guy is surrounded by a bunny harem.
Yep.
So Tsugumi has to dress up like a bunny to go help him out.
It's time for the costume marketing, baby. There's a lot in these 2 volumes.
125.
There's a lot of merch marketing.
We get the Tsugumi dress up. She dresses up into a bunny. She gets into a very scantily clad swimsuit, to a traditional Chinese dress, right? And throughout all of these, she just misses the boss every time, right? And even when she is around, the boss doesn't recognize her. Eventually, she puts on like a waiter's clothes, right? And the boss recognizes being that, oh, hey, Tsugumi normally dresses up as a dude, right? This whole joke there. And pretty much the boss is like, you know what? You strip right now, and you'll get off scot-free, right? And Raku just stands up for like,
and Raku
dude,
gives him shit for it. Yeah.
Raku's like, dude, that's bad. Don't do that crap, right? And then eventually, Paula comes, bombs the place, right? They get the disc they need, and they fall out of the ship, and Tsugumi's clothes rip off. And while they're in the ocean, Tsugumi's just like, you know what, Raku, thank you for standing up for me back there, right? Good chapter.
Absolutely ridiculous, but yeah, it was good.
Yep. And then, being that I read the volumes, right, and you read the fan translations.
Yep.
There was a little chapter here called Unification, a bonus chapter, right? Pretty much showing how Yui united the Char Sukai.
Yep.
Right? The whole joke is that she cried to each of the bosses 13 different times and made them all come together.
I had that as well, but it appeared in volume 15.
Volume 15?
It was later.
Yeah. Whatever. Next, we have, next volume, we have a date that Raku's supposed to be going on with Chitoge. Yui tags along with them, right? And they tell Raku to go out somewhere, right? And while they're doing this, Yui tells Chitoge that they are rivals in Raku's love, right? That Yui likes Raku not in the main way.
Yep.
Right? Not in a sisterly way, right? And Ruri and Onodera end up walking by and hear this too, right? And then we learn that the entire Shuhei Gumi is going on a gang-wide field trip.
Yep.
Right? 127, Raku and Yui are home alone. Shu calls him up and says, hey man, what are you doing today? And Raku's like, the gang's on a trip, I need to get some studying done, right? So Shu calls everybody up and is like, hey, did you know that Raku's gonna be home alone with Yui today?
And all of them rush to him.
And all of the girls just rush. So pretty...
Again, this is why I say there's a fate that binds the characters in Nisekoi. Because there's no way that all those characters can just drop what they're doing and roll. It amazes me, you know? There's gotta be some supernatural fate connection, man.
Yeah, and then we have a whole thing where they all come over and Yui's like, I'll cook some food for everybody, right?
Yep.
Whole joke is she can only cook dumplings.
Yep.
They're good dumplings, but that's the only thing she can cook, right? They all decide to play the king game. If you don't know what the king game is, it's pretty much everybody sits in a circle. You draw like popsicle sticks. Somebody gets elected to king, and the king can decide what numbers people do up, right? And then from here, just shenanigans ensue with
very common horny anime trope.
Yes, pretty much like number 2 kiss number 7, or number 2 give 18 a head pat, right? Stuff like that. Chapter 128, Yui's the king, right? And eventually the joke where we learn who Shu's crush is. It's all of the girls but Ruri.
Yep.
Funny joke. And then you know who else shows up? Haru, Fu, and Paula. They all arrive, some more King Game shenanigans, and Yui pretty much ends up thanking Raku for what she's done.
Yep.
Right? 129, Marika is being called to Raku, right, to end up getting paired up doing some stuff, and there's a whole joke that Marika read out of a self-help book. If they're not fucking you, then pull away.
And she's trying her absolute hardest not to just go all over him.
Yep, and she ends up going too far, and Rocky's like, well, I'm glad you don't hate me.
And one of my favorite parts of that chapter is when her assistant's like, yesterday you hugged Raku 12 times,
yeah, she has the entire stat sheet.
You had intimate touch 27 times, and you touched him 122 times, some ridiculous number.
So remember my joke earlier about like the Mashal chapter naming scheme? This time we have Mimiko Kiki and the Interview of Mortality.
Okay.
Right, Mimiko pretty much interviews Raku and Chitoge about their school play performance last year, and she's a sinking suspicion that they are not a couple. Raku ends up having to go somewhere, and Chitoge's like, I really do love him. We're a couple, right? Whole joke chapter I thought was really good, right? We have the next school festival, being it's been a year, right? Everybody's dressed up in a way. Haru's a witch, Fu's a vampire, Chitoge's in a maid dress.
Yeah, because it's a cosplay cafe.
Yeah, Sugumi is a konoichi, right? Raku's a samurai, and Onodera is more of a traditional maid outfit.
Once again,
right?
More marketing, man.
There's a whole scary house thing where Haru wants to scare
Onodera
and Raku into loving each other, right? And we end up learning that Haru is getting interested in a beauty contest, and this entire time she's still thinking about Raku, right? We have the beauty contest thing. Haru's in it. Everybody loves her. We've got Paula. Everybody just sort of loves her, but Paula doesn't talk. Joke chapter. Marika's on it, wearing a very skimpily clad outfit.
He gets disqualified.
Yep, and Onodera is there, and she ends up getting thrown into the scene all of a sudden, right? 133, we get more of the pageant stuff. Everybody sort of wants to root for Haru and Onodera, right? They're the two to end up winning it. And this entire time, it's sort of like, oh, hey, who's gonna win this, right? And Raku's like, I'll root for both of them, and ends up, Haru comes up and is like, hey, will you root for me? And he's like, yeah.
All right.
So pretty much ends up happening. The two sisters come out for their costume thing. Onodera's wearing a sailor uniform, right?
Yep.
And at the end of the chapter, Haru appears, and there's not a whole lot to note there, right? Next chapter, we see what Haru is wearing. It is a full wedding dress.
Whole shebang.
Right, and then they ask, the winner, because Haru wins this entire thing just because, it's crazy, right? And then, but they still ask both of them some questions, like, hey, who do you like, and all of this stuff, and Haru's like, there is somebody I like.
Yep.
While Onodera's like, no, I won't say anything, right? And the prize is that you get to dance with any boy you like, right? She ends up choosing Raku because there's nobody else she would have chosen, right? And the whole thing is like, you know what? I will really give up after this point. I'll have what I wanted.
Yep.
And that will really be out.
Yep.
So that's the end of the chapter. I think this last volume's better than the first one.
Yeah.
But let's get into your thoughts, Jaden.
Okay, so the costume contest arc, great. Once again, I'm a big fan of the Onodera sisters. I think that they're both very well-written characters.
I think most characters in here are very well-written.
Yui's pretty awful.
Yeah, we expressed our feelings on that earlier, and I'm glad, I will say this, she's the first girl to go, so it's just, I don't, why?
Yeah. Onodera and Tachibana are the GOATs. They're the MVPs. Chitoge, she's good. I like Haru, honestly, quite a lot. I've grown to like her a lot more.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of good for Haru's character.
Really, I think overall these volumes are good, but Yui brings it down a good amount.
Yeah, she really does.
So, I'm slapping this one with a 5 out of 10.
To be honest, I don't blame you. I totally understand
Which is the lowest in the series so far.
And I would agree with you.
because I think that these volumes have high points and low points.
I think volume 14 is the lowest point.
Yep.
I think it's just bad. Like, my favorite chapter out of there is literally we have the Ninjiro Fukada and the Futures of the Young chapter, right? And we've got the Onodera's Future chapter.
Yeah, my favorite
everything else in this volume I think sucks. The Appendicitis chapter is fine, but it's still not that good compared to chapter 15 where we get the really good stuff of the Raku and Yui stuff, or not Raku and Yui, jeez, like the Onodera sister stuff, right? And the Marika's Cold chapter and the Mimiko Kiki chapter. I think that's pretty good.
All right, well, that's all I have for me. I didn't take a lot of notes this time because most of them were Yui's awful, Onodera good.
Yeah, and I'll have to agree with that. I don't really have a whole lot to note either. Again, these were volumes 14 and 15, covering chapters 117 and 134, and we'll see you next time with part 8.
Next part.
Part 8. All right, see you,
See you
everybody.
guys.